Hey, I'm really glad you're here. Today we're going to walk through the life of Jack Ma slowly and calmly, like two friends talking over coffee. His story isn't about being perfect. It's about falling down many times and still standing up again. And if you enjoy this content, subscribing to English to Inspire will help more people find these conversations. Let's go back to the beginning. Jack Ma was born in 1964 in a city called Hangzhou in China. At that time, China was very different. It was not modern and rich like today. Life was simple. Many families didn't have much money. His parents were storytellers and musicians. They performed traditional music. So his home was full of stories, sounds, and imagination. But school was not easy for him. He was not a strong student. He struggled, especially with math. Imagine sitting in a classroom, looking at numbers on the board, and feeling lost. Have you ever felt that way? Everyone else seems to understand, but you don't. That was him. He failed important exams more than once. In China, there is a big exam that students must pass to enter university. It's very competitive. Millions of students take it. Jack Ma failed it. Not once, not twice. He failed it 3 times. Think about that for a moment. Each time he had to go home and tell his family. Each time he had to see his friends move forward while he stayed behind. That hurts. It's embarrassing. Many people would stop trying. But something interesting was happening during those years. When Jack Ma was a teenager, tourists started visiting Hangzhou. China was slowly opening to the world. He was curious. He wanted to meet foreigners. He wanted to learn English. So every morning he rode his bicycle for about 40 minutes to a big hotel where foreign visitors stayed. Picture this: a skinny teenage boy on an old bicycle, very early in the morning, waiting outside a hotel. He didn't ask for money. He simply offered to be a free tour guide. He would show tourists around the city. In return, they spoke English with him. That's how he learned. He didn't learn English in a fancy school. He learned it on the streets. He listened carefully. He copied the sounds. He made mistakes. The tourists laughed sometimes, but in a kind way. He laughed too. One day a foreign visitor said, "Your Chinese name is hard for me to say. Can I call you Jack?" And that's how Ma Yun became Jack Ma. Names matter. That new name made him feel connected to the world. It gave him confidence. It made him feel bigger than his small city. Even though he failed exams, even though teachers didn't think he was special, he had something powerful: curiosity and courage to approach strangers. Later, after failing the university entrance exam several times, he finally passed. He entered a teacher's college. Not a top university, not a famous one, but he got in. He studied English and became an English teacher. Imagine him in a classroom again. But this time he was at the front. He was smiling, telling jokes, making students laugh. He loved teaching. He earned very little money, but he felt proud. Here's something important. At that time, nobody looked at him and thought, "This man will build a global company." Nobody. He was just a small-town teacher with big ears, big dreams, and simple clothes. And yet, deep inside, something was growing. A belief that the world was larger than what he could see. A belief that failing exams did not mean failing in life. Have you ever been judged by your grades? or by one mistake? It's easy to think that one failure defines you, but Jack Ma's early life shows something different. Failure was not the end. It was just practice. And soon something would happen that would change his life completely. It would begin with a trip to another country and with a strange word he had never heard before, the Internet. When Jack Ma was still an English teacher, he never imagined that a simple trip would change his life. At that time, he was earning very little money. His life was simple. He rode his bike to work. He lived in a small apartment. But he had one advantage. He spoke English well. In the mid-1990s, a Chinese company needed someone to help with translation in the United States. They invited Jack to go with them. Imagine how exciting that must have felt. It was his first time traveling to America. For a boy who once waited outside hotels to speak with tourists, this was a big moment. When he arrived in the U.S., everything felt different. The streets looked wider. The buildings were taller. The supermarkets were huge. He once said he was shocked by how open and modern everything felt. But the biggest surprise was still waiting. One day, a friend showed him a computer. Remember, in China at that time, very few people had seen a computer. The friend said, "This is the Internet." Jack didn't even know how to use a keyboard. He was nervous. He thought pressing the wrong key might break it. The friend told him to search for something. So Jack typed the word beer. The screen showed many results. American beer, German beer, Japanese beer, but there was no Chinese beer. He tried another word, China. Almost nothing appeared. Think about that moment. He stared at the screen. A whole country with thousands of years of history and almost nothing online. It was like China didn't exist in this new digital world. That moment was quiet, but powerful. He felt something inside. Not fear, not confusion, opportunity. Have you ever had a moment like that? A small discovery that suddenly opens your mind? For him, this was the spark. You didn't fully understand the Internet, but he understood one thing. If China was not online, someone needed to bring it there. When he returned to China, he was excited. He told his friends about the Internet. Most of them didn't believe him. Some laughed. They said, "The Internet? That won't work here." Others thought he was dreaming too big. Still, he decided to try. He started his first internet company called China Pages. It was simple. He wanted to help Chinese businesses create websites so the world could see them. But remember, this was the 1990s in China. Many business owners didn't even use computers. Imagine him walking into small offices trying to explain what a website is. "It's like a digital business card," he would say. Some people stared at him with confusion. Others politely said no. He faced rejection again, just like with his exams, just like with job applications. In fact, around that time, he applied for many jobs and was rejected from almost all of them. He once said he applied to work at KFC when it opened in his city. 24 people applied. 23 were accepted. He was the only one rejected. That kind of rejection hurts. It can make you feel small. But Jack had a strange relationship with failure. He didn't see it as a stop sign. He saw it as a redirection. China Pages did not become a huge success. There were problems. There were disagreements. He eventually lost control of the company. For many people, that would be the end of the dream. But for him, it was training. He learned how business works. He learned about technology. He learned that vision is not enough. You need timing. You need the right team. You need patience. Think about your own life. Maybe you tried something and it didn't work. Maybe you felt embarrassed. But what if that experience was preparing you for something bigger? Jack Ma didn't become successful overnight. He was still searching, still learning, still failing. But now he had seen the future. He had touched it with his own hands on that computer in America. And soon, in a small apartment with a group of friends, he would try again. This time the idea would be bigger. The risk would be greater. And the world would never be the same. When Jack Ma decided to try again, he didn't have a big office. He didn't have investors waiting with money. He didn't even have a clear plan for how everything would work. What he had was belief. And sometimes belief is enough to begin. It was 1999. He invited 17 friends to his small apartment in Hangzhou. Imagine that room. Simple walls, basic furniture. Maybe tea on the table. Some people sitting on the floor because there weren't enough chairs. The air probably felt warm and full of doubt. He stood in front of them and spoke for about 2 hours. He told them about the internet. He told them that small Chinese businesses needed a way to sell their products to the world. He said they could build an online marketplace, a place where companies could meet buyers from other countries. Some of his friends did not fully understand the technology. To be honest, neither did he. But they trusted him. They trusted his energy, his courage, his strange confidence. At the end of that meeting, they decided to invest their savings, not millions, just small amounts of money. Together, they collected about $60,000. That was the beginning of Alibaba. Think about that risk. These were not rich people. They were regular workers. They believed in a dream that most people around them thought was crazy. In the early days, the team worked inside that apartment. They sat close together. They shared one computer sometimes. The internet connection was slow. Sometimes it stopped working. They didn't complain. They laughed. They kept going. Jack Ma was not a technical expert. He couldn't write code. He couldn't build the system himself, but he understood people. He understood motivation. He told his team, "Today is hard. Tomorrow will be worse. But the day after tomorrow will be sunshine." That sentence became famous later, but at that time it was just a small group holding on to hope. They focused on small businesses. Big companies didn't take them seriously. That was fine. Jack believed small businesses were strong. They were hungry. They wanted to grow. He once said, "Small is beautiful." He truly believed that. Have you ever felt small in a big world, like nobody sees you? That's how many of those business owners felt. Alibaba gave them a voice, but it wasn't easy. There were days when they had no new customers, days when they worried about paying bills. Imagine sitting in that small apartment at night, looking at the numbers, wondering if this dream would survive another month. Jack tried to keep the mood positive. He told jokes. He shared stories. He reminded everyone why they started. He created a culture that felt more like a family than a company. One story from that time is simple but powerful. During one difficult period when money was tight, he gathered the team and said, "If we can't survive, we'll close the company. But we will close it with a smile." He didn't want fear to control them. That attitude changed everything. Instead of focusing on fear, they focused on service. They listened carefully to their customers. They improved the website little by little. They answered emails late at night. They treated every small client as important. And slowly something started to happen. More businesses joined. More users signed up. Word spread. Investors began to notice. At first, many investors said no. They thought China was not ready. They thought the idea was too risky. Rejection again. But then, one major investor believed in them. That investment gave Alibaba oxygen. It allowed them to grow faster. It gave them time. Time is important in business. Many good ideas fail because they run out of time. Jack Ma once said that he was not the smartest person in the room. He was not the best student. But he was good at finding smart people and trusting them. That was his strength. As Alibaba grew, the small apartment became too small. The team moved to a bigger office. More employees joined. The dream was no longer just an idea spoken in a crowded living room. It was becoming real. But growth brings new problems. Competition was coming. And this time the competitor was not small. It was one of the biggest internet companies in the world. When Alibaba started to grow, many people in China were excited. Small businesses were finally selling products online. Money was moving, hope was growing. But then something big happened. A giant company from the United States entered China. That company was eBay. At that time, eBay was already very powerful. It had millions of users around the world. It had money, technology, and experience. When eBay decided to compete in China, many people believed Alibaba would disappear. Imagine how that must have felt inside the Alibaba office. One day you feel proud. The next day you hear that a global giant is coming to your market. Some employees were scared. Some investors were nervous. But Jack Ma reacted in a surprising way. He didn't say, "We are too small." He didn't say, "We can't win." Instead, he told his team something simple. eBay is a shark in the ocean, but we are a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the ocean, we lose. But if we fight in the river, we win. Think about that image for a moment. A shark is strong in deep water, but in a small river, it cannot move well. Jack understood something important. China was not just another market. It had its own culture, its own habits, its own way of doing business. Instead of copying eBay, Alibaba did something different. They listened carefully to Chinese users. They made the platform more colorful, more lively. They allowed buyers and sellers to chat directly. They made it feel personal. eBay used a global system. It was standard. It was serious. But Alibaba felt local, friendly, flexible. There is a story from that time. Jack Ma gathered his team and told them, "Today is difficult, but we are young. We are hungry, and we understand our customers better than anyone." He encouraged them to move fast, to test ideas quickly. If something didn't work, they changed it. They were not afraid to experiment. For example, eBay charged fees to list products. Alibaba decided to offer free listings. That was risky. They needed money. But Jack believed that building trust and community was more important in the beginning. Have you ever faced someone bigger than you? Someone stronger, richer, more experienced? It's easy to feel small in those moments, but Jack's strategy was not about being bigger. It was about being smarter in a specific place. The competition lasted for years. It was intense. Marketing campaigns, discounts, pressure. But slowly, Chinese users chose Alibaba. They felt understood. They felt at home. Eventually, eBay reduced its operations in China. Alibaba survived, not because it had more money, but because it had better connection with its users. That victory changed everything. Investors started to see Alibaba as a serious company. The team felt stronger. Confidence grew. The small apartment dream was now beating global giants. But success also brings pressure. When you win one battle, people expect you to win every battle. Employees grow from dozens to hundreds, then to thousands. Decisions become heavier. Every mistake becomes more visible. Jack Ma was no longer just a dreamer with a vision. He was becoming the leader of a large organization. And leadership at that level is not easy. There were nights when he couldn't sleep. There were moments when he questioned himself. Could a former English teacher really manage a fast-growing tech company? Growth was exciting, but it was also dangerous, because now the challenge was not just to survive. The challenge was to stay true to the original spirit while the company became bigger and more complex. As Alibaba kept growing, the office changed. The small apartment was a memory now. There were larger rooms, many desks, and hundreds of employees typing on computers. The sound of keyboards filled the air. People moved quickly in the hallways. Everything felt faster. But growth is not only exciting, it's heavy. Jack Ma once said that when you have 20 employees, you worry about survival. When you have 200, you worry about management. When you have 2,000, you worry about culture. Culture means the shared spirit of a company, the way people think and act together. He was afraid of losing that early energy. In the beginning, everyone believed deeply in the mission. They worked late because they cared. Now new employees were joining who did not experience the small apartment days. They saw a successful company, not a fragile dream. Imagine standing in front of thousands of workers. You feel proud, but you also feel responsible. Every decision affects many families. There is a story from one company meeting. Jack Ma stood on stage, looking at a huge crowd of employees. He spoke about values, not about money, not about stock prices. He reminded them that Alibaba was built to help small businesses. He repeated this again and again. Why repeat it? Because when companies grow, it's easy to forget why they started. At the same time, Alibaba launched new projects. One of the most important was Alipay. At that time, online payments were risky in China. Many people did not trust sending money through the internet. Jack made a bold decision. Alipay would hold the buyer's money until the product arrived safely. Only then would the seller receive the payment. It was a simple idea, but it created trust. Some partners were angry. They thought it was too risky. Some people inside the company were worried about legal problems. But Jack believed trust was more important than short-term safety. Have you ever made a decision that others did not understand? It's lonely. You hear criticism. You feel pressure. But sometimes leadership means choosing what you believe is right, even when it's uncomfortable. Alipay became very successful. It changed online shopping in China. People felt safer. They clicked buy with more confidence. That trust helped Alibaba grow even more. But success also brought personal pressure to Jack Ma. He was now famous. Journalists wanted interviews. Investors wanted meetings. The government watched closely. Every word he said could move markets. There were moments when he felt tired. In private conversations, he admitted that leading a giant company was harder than starting one. When you start something small, you are free. When it becomes huge, you carry many expectations. Imagine walking into your office knowing that millions of users depend on your platform, that thousands of employees depend on your decisions, that one mistake could cause serious damage. Yet he tried to stay playful. In company events, he sometimes dressed in costumes. He sang on stage. He laughed loudly. He wanted employees to feel that work could still be joyful. Why does that matter? Because fear kills creativity. If people are always afraid of making mistakes, they stop trying new ideas. Jack Ma often told his team, "Don't worry about mistakes. Worry about not learning." He repeated this idea in many speeches. Failure was still his teacher, even now. But the bigger Alibaba became, the more complex the world around it grew. Regulations changed. Competition increased again. And at some point, Jack had to ask himself a difficult question. Was he still the right person to lead this giant company into the future? As Alibaba became one of the biggest companies in China, and even in the world, people started to see Jack Ma almost like a symbol. He was no longer just a businessman. He was a public figure. Cameras followed him. Young entrepreneurs listened carefully to his words. Some people even treated him like a hero. But inside, he was still that former English teacher. There is a story about one quiet evening after a long day of meetings. He was sitting alone in his office. The lights of the city were shining outside the window. The building was almost empty. He later said that moments like that made him think deeply, not about money, not about fame, but about responsibility. When a company is small, mistakes are small. When a company is huge, mistakes are big. Alibaba went public in 2014 on the New York Stock Exchange. It was one of the largest public offerings in history. The company raised billions of dollars. Imagine standing there, ringing the opening bell, knowing that your company is now part of global financial markets. Investors around the world were watching. It was a proud moment, but it was also heavy. Now, Alibaba was not just a Chinese company. It was a global business. Shareholders expected strong results every 3 months. Analysts studied every number. The pressure increased. At the same time, Jack Ma started thinking about something personal. He had always said he did not want to run Alibaba forever. He believed leaders should prepare the next generation. Many people don't like to give up control. Power feels good. It gives importance. It gives influence. But Jack began to talk openly about stepping down one day. In company meetings, he would say, "Alibaba does not belong to Jack Ma. It belongs to our customers and employees." That sentence sounds simple, but it's hard to live by. Have you ever built something and felt proud of it? Maybe a project, a business, even a family tradition. Letting go can feel scary. You worry that others won't protect it the same way you would. There was a specific moment when he announced that he would step down as chairman. It was 2019. He chose his 55th birthday as the day to officially pass leadership to someone else. Picture that day. Employees gathered. Cameras were there. People were emotional. Some were surprised. Why leave when the company is strong? Why not stay longer? Jack explained that he wanted to return to education. Remember, he started as a teacher. That part of him never disappeared. He believed that preparing young people was more important than holding on to power. During his farewell event, he didn't look sad. He smiled. He thanked his team. He talked about dreams and responsibility. He danced on stage. It was joyful, but also symbolic. A chapter was closing. Stepping down did not mean disappearing, but it meant trusting others. Trust is not only for customers. It is also for your team. Leadership is not about being the hero forever. It's about building something that can live without you. That idea is strong. It takes confidence to leave when you are still powerful. It takes humility to admit that others can lead too. But life after leadership is not always simple. The world changes. Governments change rules. Public opinions shift. And sometimes being a famous entrepreneur brings new kinds of challenges that are harder than business competition. After Jack Ma stepped down as chairman of Alibaba, many people thought his life would become quiet and simple. They imagined him traveling, teaching, maybe enjoying long mornings without meetings. For a short time, that seemed possible. But the world around him was changing. In 2020, Jack Ma gave a public speech in Shanghai. In that speech, he criticized some financial rules in China. He said they were old-fashioned and slow. He spoke with confidence, like he often did. He believed innovation needed freedom. He believed financial systems should support small businesses better. But this time, the reaction was different. Soon after that speech, the government increased regulation on large tech companies. A big financial project connected to Alibaba, called Ant Group, was preparing for a massive public offering. It was expected to be one of the largest in history. Then suddenly it was stopped. Imagine the shock inside the company. Months of preparation, huge expectations. Then everything paused. Jack Ma became less visible in public. News articles asked questions. Rumors spread. Some people worried about him. Others criticized him. The situation was complex. It was not a simple business competition. It involved politics, regulation, and national priorities. For the first time in many years, Jack Ma was not on stage. He was not giving big speeches. He was quiet. Think about that change. For decades, he was known for his energy and bold words. Now, silence. Have you ever experienced a moment when you had to step back? When speaking loudly was no longer the right choice? Sometimes life teaches us that timing matters, not only ideas. During this period, Jack Ma appeared in small events related to education and agriculture. He visited schools. He spoke to teachers. He looked more relaxed, less like a corporate leader, and more like a mentor. Some observers said he was learning again, not about business growth this time, but about balance. It's easy to think that success protects you from problems, but it doesn't. In fact, success can make problems bigger. The higher you climb, the stronger the wind feels. There is something important here. Jack Ma once said, "If you want to grow, you must embrace change." Embrace means accept with openness, but change is not always comfortable. Sometimes it feels like losing control. During these years, Alibaba also changed. The company faced new rules. It adjusted its structure. It focused more on stability. The wild, fast growth years were over. Now it was about responsibility and long-term survival. Jack Ma's role in public life became smaller, but his story did not disappear. Young entrepreneurs still talked about his early failures, his exam struggles, his rejections. Maybe that is the real power of his story. Not the stock market numbers, not the billions of dollars, but the reminder that setbacks are normal. Imagine being rejected from dozens of jobs. Imagine being the only person not hired at KFC. Imagine failing exams again and again. If he had stopped there, we would never know his name. Success did not protect him from future challenges, and challenges did not erase his past achievements. Life moves in waves, up and down, growth and pause, noise and silence. And through all these waves, one question remains important. What does Jack Ma truly believe about failure, learning, and building a meaningful life? If you listen carefully to Jack Ma's speeches over the years, you start to see a pattern. He talks about failure more than success. That may sound strange. Most people like to show their victories. He often shared his mistakes. He once said he applied for about 30 jobs and was rejected from almost all of them. He failed primary school exams. He failed middle school exams. He failed the university entrance exam more than once. When he applied to work at KFC in his city, he was the only person not accepted. He told these stories with a smile, but imagine the feelings behind them. Standing in line with other applicants, waiting for your name to be called, watching everyone else get chosen, then hearing nothing. That kind of moment can break your confidence. Have you ever felt like everyone else is moving forward and you are stuck? It's painful. It makes you question yourself. But Jack Ma developed a different way of thinking. He began to see rejection as training, not as proof that he was worthless, but as practice for resilience. Resilience means the ability to recover after difficulty. He once explained it like this: if you don't give up, you still have a chance. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But think about it. The only way to truly lose is to stop trying completely. There's a small story from his teaching days. When he was an English teacher, his salary was low. He could not afford many luxuries, but he was happy in class. He loved seeing students improve. He loved jokes and discussion. That experience shaped him deeply. Why? Because teaching forced him to communicate clearly, to explain ideas in simple words. Later, when he spoke to employees or investors, he used that same skill. He didn't talk like a typical engineer. He talked like a storyteller. Failure gave him empathy. Empathy means understanding other people's feelings. Because he had failed many times, he understood fear. He understood doubt. So when employees made mistakes, he was patient. He often told young people not to worry about being average at school. He said, if you are smart, you know what to do. If you are not so smart, you know who to work with. That is honest. He admitted he was not a top student, so he focused on building strong teams. Think about your own life. Maybe you are not the best in one skill. That doesn't mean you can't succeed. Maybe your strength is connecting people, or listening carefully, or staying calm under pressure. Jack Ma also believed that age matters in learning. He said when you are in your 20s, you should follow a good boss and learn. In your 30s, you can try to build something small. In your 40s, focus on what you are good at. After 50, help young people grow. You don't have to follow this plan exactly, but the idea behind it is interesting. Life has seasons. You don't need to rush everything at once. There's one more idea he repeated often. He said customers come first, employees second, and shareholders third. That order surprised many business experts. Usually, companies focus on investors. But he believed that if customers and employees are happy, money will follow naturally. Is that always easy? No. It requires long-term thinking. It requires patience. Jack Ma's philosophy is not perfect. He made mistakes. He faced criticism, but his message about persistence is clear. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You need to keep learning when others stop. And when you look at his journey from a boy who failed exams to a global entrepreneur, you begin to see that success is not one big moment. It is a long chain of small decisions not to give up. And that brings us to something even more personal. What can we, in our own simple lives, take from this long and complicated story? When we look at Jack Ma's life from far away, it can feel huge. Billion-dollar companies, global headlines, big stages with bright lights. But when you look closely, the important lessons are simple, very human. Let's slow down and bring it closer to us. First, curiosity changed his life. Remember the teenage boy riding his bicycle to meet tourists? He didn't wait for a teacher to force him. He was curious. He wanted to understand the world. That simple habit opened doors later. You don't need to build a giant company to copy that habit. Next time you feel curious about something, follow it. Read a little more. Ask one more question. Observe what happens. Curiosity builds skills quietly. Second, rejection did not define him. When Jack Ma was rejected from jobs and failed exams, he felt disappointed. Of course he did. He was human. But he did not let those moments decide his identity. Think about a recent rejection in your life. Maybe a job application. Maybe a project that didn't work. What story did you tell yourself after that? Did you say, "I'm not good enough"? Or did you say, "This is feedback"? The words we tell ourselves matter. Third, he focused on people. He was not the best programmer. He was not a top mathematician. But he understood human motivation. He built teams. He trusted others. He created an atmosphere where people felt part of something bigger. Even in a small family or a small office, that lesson works. Encourage people. Listen to them. Celebrate small wins. Fear makes people hide. Trust makes people grow. There is also a lesson about timing. When he saw the internet for the first time in America, he did not fully understand it, but he sensed that it would grow. He acted before most people around him believed in it. We all have moments like that. Maybe not about technology. Maybe about changing careers or learning a new skill. The moment feels uncertain. You don't have all the answers. But something inside says, try. Have you ever ignored that voice? Many of us do. We wait for perfect certainty, but perfect certainty rarely comes. Jack Ma also showed something about letting go. When he stepped down from leadership, he showed that identity is not only about position. He returned to education. He shifted his focus. That flexibility is powerful. Sometimes we hold onto roles too tightly. I am this job, I am this title, but life changes. If we can adapt, we suffer less. There's a simple exercise you can try. The next time you fail at something small, pause. Don't react immediately. Ask yourself, what can this teach me? Write one lesson. Just one. Over time, that habit builds resilience. And one more thing. Jack Ma often spoke about dreams. Not unrealistic fantasies, but direction. He believed small businesses deserved a chance. That dream guided him through hard days. What guides you? It doesn't need to be big. Maybe your dream is to provide stability for your family, or to feel proud of your work, or to become more confident in English. Clear direction gives energy when motivation is low. His story is not perfect. It includes controversy, pressure, and mistakes. But it shows that growth is possible, even when you start from a place of struggle. And when we put all these lessons together, something simple appears. Success is less about talent and more about endurance. Less about being special and more about staying committed over time. That idea feels quiet, but it's strong, and it leads us gently to a final reflection about what really stays with us after the noise of success fades away. When we reach the end of Jack Ma's journey, it's tempting to focus on numbers, the size of Alibaba, the billions of dollars, the global influence. But numbers are loud, and what stays with us is often quiet. Picture again that teenage boy on a bicycle in Hangzhou. Early morning air, empty streets. He rides toward a hotel, hoping to practice English with strangers. He doesn't know the future. He doesn't know about stock markets or global investors. He only knows he is curious. That image feels more powerful than any headline. Later, picture the small apartment in 1999. 17 friends sitting close together. A simple dream about connecting small Chinese businesses to the world. No guarantee, no safety net. Just belief. And then, years later, picture him stepping away from leadership, smiling, thanking his team, choosing to return to education. That circle feels meaningful. He started as a teacher. He returned to teaching. There is something human in that. Jack Ma's life shows that identity can grow and change. You can fail exams and still build something important. You can be rejected many times and still find your path. You can become powerful and still choose to step back. Have you noticed how often fear tries to stop us early? Fear of embarrassment, fear of being judged, fear of failing publicly. If Jack Ma had listened to fear at the beginning, he would have stopped after his first exam failure, or after being rejected from KFC, or after his first business struggled. Instead, he treated failure like a temporary event, not a permanent identity. That idea is simple, but it takes practice. The next time something goes wrong in your life, try this. Say to yourself, this is an event, not my identity. Repeat it. Notice how it feels. He also reminds us that you don't have to be the most technical person in the room. You don't have to be the smartest student. Skills can be learned. But courage, curiosity, and persistence must be chosen again and again. There's another quiet lesson. Success does not remove challenges. Even after global recognition, Jack Ma faced new difficulties. Regulations changed, public opinion shifted. Life did not suddenly become easy. That's important. Many people think, when I succeed, my problems will disappear, but problems change shape. They don't vanish. The goal is not a life without difficulty. The goal is becoming stronger inside. Think about your own story. Maybe you are at the beginning of something. Maybe you are in the middle, feeling tired. Or maybe you are thinking about letting go of one chapter and starting another. Wherever you are, remember this. Progress is often invisible at first. Like that teenage boy practicing English every morning. No applause, no rewards. Just small daily effort. Over time, small efforts compound. Compound means they grow little by little until the result becomes big. But when you are inside the process, it just feels like another ordinary day. Jack Ma's life is not about copying his path. You don't need to build an internet company. It's about copying his attitude toward rejection and change. If any of these ideas stayed in your mind, hold on to them. Maybe tonight, when you think about your own goals, you'll remember the boy on the bicycle, and you'll choose to keep riding forward, even if the road feels uncertain.